Please welcome Dr. David Lopez, President of the National Hispanic University.
Wow, this is exciting. I have to say, there's only one thing more beautiful than those hills right there in the east and this beautiful day and weather. And that's seeing all of us here celebrating the 30th anniversary of the National Hispanic University. 30 years. I'm glad to see so many of you here today, and all of our distinguished guests, our faculty, our students, and staff, and community members. I also want to welcome several students and faculty from several of our institutions across the Laureate International Universities Network who are watching this event via webcast. I'm excited to showcase our university to all of you and to share with you this special community here in the heart of San Jose. I, for one, am very proud of all that we've accomplished together, and I'm filled with hope for all that is yet to come. Many of you already know the National Hispanic University was founded in 1981 by the late Dr. Roberto Cruz. A man dedicated his life to creating higher education opportunities for Hispanics and others. And I know mi mentor y mi gran amigo is looking down on us saying, hacen bien, hagan más, keep it up. He's probably telling me, muévate más, David. Ya me estoy moviendo. But I remember many years ago when I first met Dr. Cruz, and those of you that knew him knew that he was very passionate about this. And I was sitting with him in his school on First and Gish in North San Jose, and I asked him about how many students he had. And at that time it was small, it was a two-room situation with a few students, and he said 54 students. And I said, well, what am I going to ask him next? And I looked at him, and you know who he was. He just looked, well. And I said, are you thinking of expanding? He looked at me and took off his glasses with his big eyes and said, Dr. Lopez, the university is not in brick and mortar. The university is here and here. I just looked at him and I wanted to go under the table because I thought, this man is so passionate, so visionary, so insightful. He said, the need for educating Latinos is going to continue to grow. And he said, it's not a new and novel idea to have a mission-driven university. The historically black colleges have been doing it for over 100 years. 77 of those universities producing 80% of the African-American leadership in this country. And when he told me that, I said, yes, he's right. Why can't we do the same? Everyone thought Dr. Cruz was crazy when he started the idea in 1981. People told him, you don't need to do anything like this. The students can just go to other institutions. But he stayed the course. And look what we have today. We have brick and mortar, a state-of-the-art facility that happened because he realized it could happen, he envisioned it, and it's happening. We're an accredited institution, and when he passed away in 2003, I couldn't believe it. I didn't know he had cancer. And I was very happy at Fresno State, very content with my full professorship, muy a gusto, como dicen, with my daughters who are here today, Gabriela and Adriana. But I felt it was my personal and professional obligation, una obligación, to keep that mission alive and that dream. And I came here 9 years ago, and I became president of National Hispanic University, and today we are continuing to build. We have our institution, our building that makes a statement, aquí estamos y no nos vamos, okay? We have faculty with programs that are serving students in a very culturally responsive way. We call it familia, where we all work together with respect, things that we grew up with in our homes. We share that with students. And I could go on and on and on talking about my family, but I won't do that. But I know my mom and dad are watching. I'm delighted to announce today that in addition to continuing our on-campus programs, the National Hispanic University will begin offering online programs entirely online, 100%. Our new fully online Masters of Arts in Education with a specialization in teaching and learning will begin April 30th. April 30th. And on June 25th, students can begin our new online program in the BA in Child Development. With an emphasis in biliteracy development, something Dr. Cruz always talked about. We celebrate bilingualism, biculturalism. It's important to begin our online portfolio with these two programs because it addresses a great need. Today in the country, there are 50 million Latinos. Dr. Cruz envisioned this 30 years ago. And he told me, David, the challenge and the need is going to continue to grow. That's why the NHU is important. And his vision of having multiple campuses across the United States and online distance education. And I've seen his drawings when he was drawing these ideas up, when he had the vision. And guess what, folks? Today, the fastest growing city, proportionally speaking, for Latinos is Raleigh, North Carolina. So Latinos are everywhere in the United States. You know? Estamos donde quiera, sí. Donde no nos metemos, nos somamos. So we are working hard to fulfill these goals and the online programs that will be delivered across this nation. And we'll be able to go beyond San Jose, beyond California, nationally and internationally. I like to call that the virtual familia. How's that? Huh? But we're not the only ones working toward these goals. Our community is very fortunate to have leaders committed and dedicated to the success and prosperity of Hispanics. Today, I'm proud to welcome one such leader, Los Angeles Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa. Considered one of the top Latino political voices in the U.S., Mayor Villaraigosa has been a passionate champion of Hispanic issues since the early days of his career. One of his primary focuses has been improving quality of life and opportunities for Hispanics through education. As a member of the California State Assembly in the 90s, Mayor Villaraigosa was at the forefront of the $9.1 billion initiative to revitalize California schools. Once in office, he began his relentless and unyielding fight to turn around the Los Angeles public school system, driven by the belief that every child, regardless of their income or ethnicity, deserves a quality education. Mayor Villaraigosa also founded and currently oversees the Partnership for Los Angeles Schools, a major collaboration between Los Angeles, the City of Los Angeles, and Los Angeles Unified School District to rehabilitate the city's challenged schools. This project is one of the largest school turnaround initiatives in the country, serving nearly 17,000 students in some of LA's most impoverished communities. Last year, in recognition of his exemplary service to the Latino community, Mayor Villaraigosa was given the distinguished Edward R. Roybal Award for Outstanding Public Service by the National Association of Latino and Elected Officials. Mayor Villaraigosa is a reform-minded leader and champion for quality education. We are honored to have him participate in our 30th anniversary celebration and recognize his tireless effort to improve access to quality education for the Hispanic community. At this time, I'd like to ask Mayor Villaraigosa to join me at the podium. I want to congratulate you, brother. Thank you. Doctor Villaraigosa. Doctor.
Pues muchas gracias, Presidente Lopez, members of the NHU board, members of the administration, the faculty and staff, students and alumni, distinguished guests, y bienvenidos a todos los estudiantes internacionales que nos ven por medio del Internet, nos están mirando en estos momentos. It's an honor to stand before you today and receive this honorary doctorate of humane letters. It's also a distinct pleasure to share in the celebration of this significant milestone in the history of the National Hispanic University. Congratulations on NHU's 30th anniversary. Let's give them a big hand. 30 years ago, NHU started out with just 2 rooms in a building in Oakland. Not quite a one-room schoolhouse, but close to it. From this beginning, NHU has grown and prospered. It's attracted more students, added faculty and new programs, and built a fine campus here in San Jose, a beautiful campus here in San Jose. From 2 rooms to 65,000 square feet on 11 acres in 30 years. This is a proud accomplishment. We should all be proud. Now, throughout these 3 decades of development, the university remained dedicated to a noble goal, to throw open the gates of the ivory tower, to enlarge the circle of educational opportunity, to bring traditionally underserved students into the university classroom and prepare them for successful careers and positions of leadership. I want to thank you for this honorary doctorate, but most importantly, thank you for your vision. Thank you for creating a university that's a model of inclusive and multicultural education. Now, the founding president of NHU, Dr. Roberto Cruz, started the National Hispanic University because he saw an unfulfilled need. As an educator, he knew the immense value of education, and especially of a quality higher education. He knew that a high-quality college education could deliver a huge boost up the economic ladder. He knew it was a passport to the middle class. And Dr. Cruz knew that not enough Latino students were getting those passports stamped. Now, the gap between these students and other groups was growing, and Dr. Cruz vowed to do something about it. To close this gap, he took a bold step of creating a university tailored to the educational needs of these students. And thanks to the efforts of trailblazers like Dr. Cruz, Latino students have made great strides nationally. From 2009 to 2010, the number of Hispanic students on college campuses jumped by over 345,000 nationwide. Now, part of this increase is due to population growth, as you heard. But much of the growth is because our young people are better prepared for college. They're doing better in high school, and they're better able to take advantage of the opportunity higher education offers. But even as we celebrate this accomplishment, and we should be proud of this, we also have to acknowledge the looming shadow of adversity. You know, in California, they talk about that by 2025, we're going to be 1 million college graduates under what we need. And the biggest reason for that is the achievement gap. And the biggest part of that achievement gap is us. So the promised land is nearer. We can see it more clearly, but we're not quite there yet. There's still too much inequality. There's still too many of our young people stuck in bad schools. There's still too many dreams deferred and too much opportunity denied. The poverty rate has increased among Latinos faster than among other groups. I don't have to tell you that people are struggling to make ends meet as we speak, that the unemployment rate in cities all across the state and the nation are as high as they've been since the 1930s. And disproportionately, the people that are chronically and for a longer period unemployed and underemployed are the people who haven't graduated from high school, the people who don't have a college degree. And what is most troubling, perhaps, is that more Latino children are now in poverty than any other ethnic or racial group. So I share the late Dr. Cruz's commitment to ending the inequities of our educational system. It's why education reform has been a central plank in everything I've done as mayor. And initially, people would say to me, well, why don't you fix the potholes? Why don't you make the city safe? Why don't you fix our sidewalks and our trees? You know, education is not in your domain. And I said, you know, when you look to buy a house and you talk to the realtor, the first thing you ask is, what kind of schools do they have in the neighborhood? So if a great public school anchors a great neighborhood, then a great city has to be anchored by great public schools. And that's true not only for my city, it's true for San Jose, it's true for San Francisco and Sacramento and San Diego and every city in this state. It's why we've continued to push for fundamental changes in how we educate our children, not just in LA, but across the state as well. Now, this is a pivotal year for education reform in the Golden State. It's no secret that our schools aren't getting the resources necessary to keep quality teachers in the classroom and to support summer school and after-school programs. California, when I went to school, it used to be the gold standard in education. And I like to say, you know, when we were the best anywhere in the nation, we were also at the top in per pupil spending. There's a relationship between the investments you make and the end product. Now, we own the disgraceful distinction of being 47th in the nation when it comes to per pupil spending. Now, this needs to change. Every child, regardless of their race, religion, or income level, deserves to go to a good school. And let me add, a good public school. I was greeted by someone a few minutes ago as I walked in, so warmly greeted by so many of you. And he said, oh, good cathedral boy. He went to cathedral, and so do I. I guess he hadn't read my story. I got kicked out of Cathedral High School. Thankfully now I do have an honorary degree from them as well. And I say, you know, I went to Catholic school for a big part of my life, and it without question, gave me the foundation for everything I've been able to do. And I was blessed to have been able to go to those schools. But I tell people, it was a public school that gave me a second chance. Public schools are the places of second chances. And it's the key to our opportunity society. Without those public schools, we will never have the equality of opportunity that we talk about and is more and more becoming an elusive dream. But in addition to money, we need reform. We need to connect money and investment with results. We need to say to our legislators, particularly here in Sacramento, that we got to stop making excuses. You know, I don't quote President Bush very often, but I do quote him on this. He talks about the soft bigotry of low expectations. You know, when I went to public school, it did give me the second chance. I went from a Catholic school where I was, you know, taking college prep classes. They put me in, you know, a basic reading class, in an upholstery class. They put me in classes that I was clearly better prepared for. But that's what they did back then. And we're still doing that in a lot of ways now. When we say it's okay that we have a 50% dropout rate in our urban schools, when we make excuses about the fact that 80% of our kids are scoring at the bottom 20 percentile, and we say to them, well, you know, Señor Villaraigosa, you don't understand. These kids are the kids of immigrants. They're poor. They didn't go to college. They don't even read in their own language. Excuse after excuse. And I look at them and I say, you know, you're talking about me. You know, I can read and write. Our kids can read and write too. This university is dedicated to the idea that we're going to have the highest expectations for the next generation of our community. Now, this fall, California voters will be asked to increase funding for our schools. And all of us who are committed to quality education need to support this effort. We have an opportunity to slow our state's slide and take a critical first step in reinvesting in our schools. We cannot, we must not miss this chance. But let's be clear. A ballot initiative is only a start. We'll never get from 47th place back to the top, back to first place, one initiative at a time. We need a sustainable and long-term solution. We need to go to the root of the problem and fix California's budget and tax systems. We need to reform Proposition 13. You know, when Proposition 13 was first enacted, homeowners were paying 40% of California's property taxes. Today, they're paying 60%. If we just fix that tax loophole, and said that for commercial properties, every 5 years, we're going to reevaluate them. That's not a radical notion. It's fair. It's fair. It's the right thing to do. It's the kind of thing that we need to do to move from a tax system full of loopholes and exemptions to a system that protects homeowners, supports job creation, and gives California the ability to generate new revenue. Now, there are other things we could do. And I tell the Democrats and the Republicans, by the way, that it's broken on all sides. The fact is, our corporate tax is too high. You saw the president just proposed to lower our corporate tax rate. We ought to lower our corporate tax rate in this state too, but then eliminate all the loopholes and the exemptions and make it, streamline it. We need to expand the fastest growing part of the economy today is the service economy. We don't tax it. We ought to be able to say to every business, you got to pay your fair share. You could expand that base and fund our schools and fund our universities and make the University of California and the CSU and the community colleges the gold standard that they used to be. As I said, without common sense and balanced reforms and the added revenues they'd bring, Californians will not be able to ensure that every student in every neighborhood gets the quality education they deserve. Now, I will put this honorary degree, it will have a nice place on my office wall. It will not just because it's an honor to receive this degree. It will because I feel a deep kinship with the values of National Hispanic University, and especially this value of familia. I mean, I look around this audience here, and I know that they're watching in Mexico. We are a familia. Each time I'm honored on a university stage, I take the time to recognize the most fundamental and lasting influence on my life, my mother, Natalia. She was always my touchstone. My core values, the values that make me who I am, come from the lessons that my mother, Natalia, taught me. My mom didn't have an easy life. She raised 4 kids in East LA. She survived hardships as a foster child. She overcame unspeakable indignities in an abusive marriage, and she worked long and hard so that her children could go to college, and we all did. And through her example, her strong will, her quiet grace, she taught us all the things worth knowing. She taught us that leadership is not about standing at the front of the parade. It's about setting the best example. She taught us about hard work and the importance of doing all things well, even the small things. She'd always say, you got your name on it. Do it right. She opened our eyes to the world of books. It's interesting. People get surprised that a woman with a high school education, which was fairly significant back then, she actually graduated with a 4.0 from Sacred Heart, and I met somebody from Sacred Heart of Jesus earlier today. She graduated with a 4.0, should have gone to college, but her father was old, and she felt like she had to go to work, and she never did. But she was a learned woman. I mean, she spoke some 5 languages. She taught her kids, she'd read Shakespeare to her kids out loud. She'd read Edgar Allan Poe and the classics, and we'd have to sit there, and particularly my sister, who's a judge, and myself, and then get up and read The Telltale Heart or some other book. So she opened our eyes to the world of books and knowledge, and she always said to us, she says, there are a lot of things that you could do that can be taken away, but they can never take away your education. And I see some heads, because maybe your mom said the same thing. It never take away. And even when I was a high school dropout, as you know, and kicked out of school before that, even when I was a high school dropout, I'd be in the library. When I was taking Gilbert Cedillo to Upward Bound. He was one of the good kids. I was taking him to Upward Bound. He didn't have a car, so I had to drive him because I was working, all through school. So I'd take him to UCLA, and I'd go into the library, and I'd listen to Shakespeare as a kid. They had the books on tape, and I'd listen to Othello, and go with Iago and Desdemona and the back and forth, and this love for books and reading I got from her, and this understanding that education is the key to opportunity I got from her, and you're getting from this university as well, your familia. And above all, she gave us a set of values that says there's nothing in the world more important than family. But when I say that, she didn't just mean family in the sense of nuclear family. This was the 1950s and 60s that I was growing up. At my house in the 1950s, there were Jews eating dinner at our house. There were blacks. There were Japanese Americans. And looking back now, there was even a gay couple that would come on a regular basis in the 1950s. My mom was a very open woman, and she had this sense, a very progressive woman, but she had this sense of obligation, a family in a deeper, richer sense. Family in the sense that Jesus meant when he told the parable of the Good Samaritan and reminded us all that we are all our brother's keeper. Family in the sense of the obligation we all share to create a better world. She taught us that we were members of a larger human community and that our sense of justice, and particularly social justice, should extend beyond the walls of our home, past the boundaries of our neighborhood, beyond our city limits, and even into the wider world. I'll never forget, and maybe because I grew up in such a diverse, Ellis Island part of the city that Boyle Heights was, my mom always told us about the Holocaust and what a dark period in human history it was, and how we could never repeat what happened to the Jews during the Holocaust. Because we lived next door to and close to the Japanese Americans, she always, told us about what we did to the Japanese during World War II, because they were our neighbors. They lived next to her, and she felt this deep sense of obligation to right the wrong that America did to Japanese Americans. And then Jim Crow. She always gave us in our head that what they were doing to African Americans in the South and other places was against the fundamental values that we say we believe in. And she gave us this sense that we had to do for our family, for our community, and for the world. And it's more important than ever that we teach those values in our schools, as you do, and that we nurture it in our civic and our political institutions. We stand on the threshold of a momentous shift as we speak. Last year, for the first time in our country's history, the numbers of white children and children of color being born were roughly equal. In my own city, as you know, Latinos are 48% of the city. They're the largest group. There's no more minority there. It's we come in my city. We come from 140 countries. We speak 220 languages. We have 37 nationalities that have their largest population there outside of their country of origin. Yes, 72% of the city. No, about 74% of the city comes from the continents of Latin America, Asia, and Africa. So, when we think about the United States, We took another step toward creating a country made up of a mosaic of ethnic and racial communities. As I say, as LA and California goes, so goes the nation. Now this transformation causes some to talk about the clash of civilizations. They worry that our growing diversity makes it hard to find common ground and define the common good. But I know, and I think we know here at this university, that there's little to be afraid of. I know because of the values that my mother instilled in me. And I know because of the experience of our own community. The Latino community is a patchwork of many groups. We trace our origins back to different nations and even different continents. People talk about Los Angeles and the 44 pioneros, the trailblazers who came to Los Angeles to found the city. You know, they were from New Spain. And everybody thinks that they were homogeneous. What they don't know is that 26 of those 44 pobladores, 26 of the 44 trace their ancestry to Africa. Yes. They don't know and don't remember that the last Mexican governor, Pio Pico, traced his ancestry also to Africa. We're a collection of newcomers and those with roots that stretch deep and long into America's soil. Our story is part of America's story. Our story is about working together. We've crossed lines of class, color, and citizenship to help this country deliver on the promise of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We found community in our diversity, and we've thrived. And as America grows more diverse and the world grows more interconnected, our community's experience grows in value. Our message must be the truth of our own history, that America's song sounds the sweetest when sung by a chorus of many different voices. I'd like to conclude with a call, a challenge, if you will. But I believe I know, in fact, there is no belief in it. I do know that you all are up to it. Today in 2012, we're still in the opening stages of the 21st century. Behind us is the 20th century, a century of unparalleled economic, technological, and cultural progress, but also a century punctuated by calamity and catastrophe. The 20th century is a century of your childhood, a time you may remember, and I'm speaking primarily to the students here, a time you may remember only vaguely. I remember very well, because I was born in the middle of that century. The century opening before us, the 21st century, will be your century. It will be the century when you start your career, when you build your family. It will be the century when you make your mark and build your legacy. And let me say something about that. You know, there was a lot of ado when I got elected in 2005. And there was a lot of excitement in 2001 as I had the audacity to say, well, why not me? My grandpa got here 100 years ago. I want to serve. I want to lead. I want to unite. I want to bring my city together. And I said back then, and if any of you were in that crowd of 10,000 on 2005, I said back then, you know, the role of the first is to open up the door for the rest. It is not to pound on your chest and say what a great guy I am, because you get here on the shoulders of others. It's to keep that door open. And that is the legacy that you can build. You will be the generation who will take us forward. And as such, you face a unique opportunity and a unique challenge. Can you build on the progress but avoid the pitfalls of the past? Can you avoid the mistakes and the missteps of the preceding generations? Many of the 21st century challenges we know: closing the gap between rich and poor, both here at home and across the globe, confronting climate change, managing our growing global interdependence. But there are many future challenges that we cannot predict. Some will surprise us. They will severely test our capacity for cooperation and collaboration. And as the next generation of leaders, these challenges will fall on your shoulders. Now, I have great faith in your capacity to meet those challenges. I like to remember something that Oliver Wendell Holmes Sr. said about the young people of his generation. He said, "Through our great fortune, in our youth, our hearts were touched with fire. It was given to us to learn at the outset that life is a profound and passionate thing." I know you have the fire. You have the creativity and the imagination and the energy that the world will need to meet our common challenges. And thanks to your education here at NHU, you also have the values that will serve you well. It will not be enough for you to be a first. Your moral compass points in the right direction. It points toward familia. It points toward community, toward a fundamental responsibility to the wider world. So keep that fire that you have in your belly as I speak, the fire of youth burning. Stay true to your values. Stay true to the values of this university. Go out and open new doors. And as you open those doors, put the wedge in and keep those doors open for the next generation. Widen the net of community. Show this great nation and the world that when they open the doors in the way that they have to one generation after another of newcomers, that we will keep the dream alive, the opportunity that makes America so great. So thank you for your recognition. Thank you for your inspiring work. I admire your dedication and your commitment. Thank you very much. And thank you for making me a member of the extended family. Thank you. You know, in my familia, please sit. You know, in my familia, one good deed deserves another, right? So when you're honored in the way that you have honored me here and the way that allowing me to participate in this 30th anniversary, the least you could do is return the mitzvah, as they say, the good deed, growing up in Boyle Heights as I did. So I'd like to give you a little on behalf of the residents of my great city, and I don't have to tell you that there are more Latinos in the LA metropolitan area than any city but Mexico City. In fact, I love to tell my friends in New York and Chicago and Houston, there are more in my city than in all of those three cities together. But on behalf of our residents, all of them, and on behalf of me and my family, let me thank and congratulate National Hispanic University on the occasion of its 30-year anniversary. And I'm looking forward to a university that has a presence in Los Angeles, on the internet, as you said, and wherever your good work will bring you.
Thank you. You take a picture here. Thank you. If I'd have known, I'd have made your doctorate bigger. Gee. I guess everything's bigger in Los Angeles. You know, I accept this on behalf of the students and faculty, staff, board, and the community. But I also have to tell you, Mr. Mayor, when I was a very young child, my dad worked for the railroad in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And it was a big deal for us to get on that train and go to Los Angeles, to downtown LA, to the beach. So to have this and have it from the mayor of Los Angeles touches me. It really does, because it takes me back to my childhood. Thank you very much. Your words are going to continue to serve as inspiration for our students, our faculty, our staff, all of the dignitaries that are here. We really wish you well and want you to continue doing what you're doing, because you're a tremendous voice, not only for the Latino community, but for all communities. And I say that in all sincerity. Thank you very much. So now that you're Dr. Villaraigosa, Doctor Villaraigosa, you've got to have some questions, right? And we have some questions for you from some folks. And Mariana, right? I see one of our students. I know her. I can tell. Would you like to ask a question?
First of all, hi. My name is Mariana Cervantes. I'm a senior here at NHU. And my question to you is, how has getting your higher education degree influenced you to become the person you are today?
Thank you for that question. You know, dramatically changed my life. Looking back, if I had dropped out, if I had not gone back to school, I ended up graduating on time by going to night school. If I had not gone to East LA College for a year and UCLA on an affirmative action program, I wouldn't be mayor of Los Angeles. I don't know what I would be doing. I know that most of the people that I went to school with dropped out. I know that many of them have a very tough life now. I say to you that it's changed my life in unimaginable ways that are hard to recount, but very, without question, was the difference. And that's why I feel so strongly that our kids have to be career ready or go to college. I mean, we've got to prepare them for the world of work. Hopefully, as many of them going to college as possible. And particularly, I know that I met a math teacher from Stanford earlier. You know, it's really important right now, math, science, and engineering. You know, America is not competing. You know, when I talk about urban schools, America's not competing even with the upper middle class in math, science, and engineering. So it's made the difference, all the difference in my life. Long way of answering that question.
Well, thank you, Mariana, for that question. And Jeanette is up here on the stage with me, and I'd like to say that she's was with NHU for 8 years. Started at our charter high school, the Latino College Prep, and came to NHU. And 8 years later, she received her degree and is now working at NASA Ames. And she said, I have a question for the mayor. So Mariana, would you come up and ask your question?
Thank you for the introduction. Yes, my name is Jeanette Zamora. I am an NHU alumni, and I also serve as the chair of the Hispanic Advisory Committee for Employees at NASA Ames. And my question is, what role do you think family plays for someone who is pursuing a degree?
All the difference in the world. You heard my own experience. I'd say it's really important for both boys and girls, but particularly for girls. There's sometimes we have to convince parents in our community that the girls can go away to college. I know sometimes I have to go and have those conversations, and you know, family support is everything. My mother, you know, couldn't afford to pay for my tuition, so I did all of that, and I worked since I was a kid, but she always supported my education and pushed me to go to law school after college, and so I would say it's probably the most important thing. And that's why, you know, we've started a parent union in my schools. That's why we have a parent center, and we welcome our parents, and we're putting them in front of the movement to improve our schools, because without families and parents involved, schools won't be accountable. And parents are the first teachers. So I'd say the most important thing to educational success. You know, let me just say, ending on that, on my way down here right now, I got off the plane, and young Mexicana, I'm getting, you know, a coffee, a coffee, and she's waiting, and I saw her looking at me, but I didn't know if she wanted to talk or whatever, so I just kept on ordering. Finally, I turned around, and she sheepishly came up to me, and grew up in South LA, and she's in med school at Stanford. And it gives me chills just thinking about it. And the first thing I asked her, you know, like, you know, tell me about your family. You know, it's like her family. It was her family's support. This setting high goals and standards for their kids that got this young girl to Stanford and medical school. And our parents absolutely have to be the people that are saying to our kids. You know, I'll never forget when I was dropped out of school. I been in a pretty bad fight the night before, and my mom came in full of blood, and mom thought I was mine. It wasn't. I don't mean it like that. Yeah. So she was terrified by it. She was terrified by it. In the morning, she saw a bandage here, and or here on this one, and she says, "What's that?" And it was my second tattoo, and she said, "You know, dropped out of school, got in a fight the night before. I was always fighting, angry kid." And she said to me, "You don't," she says, "you don't believe in you, but I believe in you. You are destined for greatness." Dropped out of school, you know, messed up kid. I was in every negative thing you could think of. And here was this woman saying to me that I was going to soar with eagles. Our parents have to do that. Our parents have to push us to soar with eagles.
Thank you, Jeanette, for that wonderful question. And familia is nuclear also, but it's also the extent that we're all familia, as the mayor has said. But having that parental involvement is critical, and we're working hard, not only with you as students, you also know we work with your parents, And that's what we want to do here at the National Hispanic University as we grow.
That's great.
So we have time for one more question, and I promised Dr. Bonzon that he would have an opportunity to ask his question.
Well, talking about dropouts, I was a dropout too, and I ended up getting my PhD also because of the support of the familia. Yeah. And speaking about familia, we are taking at NHU a major step by creating these online classes and the 100% online majors that we're going to be able to reach a great audience, not only nationally, but internationally. Any thoughts about that impact or, the virtual familia that we're going to be creating?
I think it's very, very important. In my schools, and I took on the lowest performing schools in Boa Heights, downtown, which is probably the poorest area of LA, and Watts. I said, give me the schools that for generations, not just one generation, in the case of Rosewood High School, for generations have been low performing, have been at the bottom. I took on a school, Markham, that was the most violent middle school in LA. 120 kids arrested on campus. Now, after the first year, less than 20, second year, less than 10. I think this year it's also less than 10. Yeah. But in all, half of my kids now, and I've had to raise money to do this, half of my kids are doing blended learning which is they using computer programs and teaching, so it's blended. That's how it's blended, to learn math and English language development. And I'm a big believer in blended learning. I mean, these are new tools, and we shouldn't be afraid of them. You're never going to replace a great teacher, but you can have, and I know you graduate a lot of great teachers. Never going to replace a great teacher, but we do have to use the tools that are available to us. And there's a lot of resistance, as you know, to online education and particularly in K through 12 and blended learning, but I'm a big believer in it. I think we've got to use every tool, and particularly where some kids, you have this disparity, so many kids at different levels. It's not like a lot of middle class schools where every kid's proficient or advanced. Here you run the gamut. So having blended learning and using internet education, and a lot of we did when I was, by the way, when I was, Prop 209 passed when I was Speaker of the Assembly. And if you remember, and I know some of you do, I was one of the people taking on that fight. Because I said to people, I said, I got in to UCLA on an affirmative action program. So some people would say, I said this as a UC regent, by the way. I said, some people will say I came in through the back door. But one thing's for sure, I got out the front. And I said, and at the time, I was the first Speaker of the California State Assembly to have graduated from UCLA. So I may have come in, through the back door, if you will. But I was the first, and now I'm only the second mayor to have graduated. Tom Bradley was the first. So I'm a big believer in the power of our schools, and a big believer to transform our lives. And I think we've got to try every tool, use every tool that we have at our disposal to help our kids succeed. Because the challenge before the nation is addressing this achievement gap. And that's a good way to do it. So I was starting to say, I'm sorry, I lost it, train of thought for a second. So I was starting to say what we saw right after 209 when we were trying to develop strategies to address it, we saw that there were all these schools where they weren't getting advanced placement classes. So they're not getting the 4.9 that these kids that have the 25, advanced placement class offerings that you can get. So we started providing those online. So that's another area where online education can be very, very important, where you don't have the breadth of offerings that kids need so that they can be successful. That's what I want to do.
Thank you for that. We don't have time for more questions, but I'd like to tell the mayor I really, really appreciate the fact that he's been bold and innovative, taking on some real systemic challenges, as I call them, and competing interests, and standing strong, because I've seen him give speeches in Los Angeles where some folks may hiss and some may boo, but he's standing strong for the students and the parents and the families of this state. And I'm sure Dr. Cruz is looking down saying, he's bold and innovative. He's a person with a different vision. Because when Dr. Cruz started the National Hispanic University, he saw that something had to happen, and it had to be different. It had to be bold and innovative. And he started the university. People thought he was crazy. But guess what, folks? Today, the three-tier system, community college, CSU, and UC, which was started 50 years ago by this governor's father, had a vision for producing the best engineers and scientists in this country, in this world. 50 years ago. Well, there were fewer students going to college back then. They were more homogeneous and they were more prepared. But guess what? They produced the best scientists, engineers, mathematicians, and teachers that the world's ever seen. Today, our big challenge is producing that same group, those same professionals in the system with a whole different demographic. And Dr. Cruz saw that, because NHU may not solve that problem, but we're going to lead the way in showing other institutions how it can be done. That we can do. Mayor, in closing this, I'd like to thank you for coming out to San Jose, for visiting with us here at NHU, to see the work that we're doing, to see that not only on the ground do we have programs and people doing work, but we're looking for opportunities online to go beyond San Jose to meet the needs of Latinos wherever they may be. And I'd like to thank all of you for believing, being here, and being part of NHU. Thank you very much.